Thank you for joining the Eldorado SELPAs for our web module on Understanding Extended School Year, commonly referred to as ESY. My name is Sarah Phillips, and I am a program specialist who will be facilitating this web module. Our objectives today will be to define and explain extended school year, to identify tools for guiding ESY eligibility and IEP discussions, and completing paperwork in the IEP that is correct and compliant. Let's start with defining what is extended school year. Extended school year services are special education services that are provided to a student with a disability during extended school breaks. Per IDEA and California Ed Code, these services assist the student in working toward the same goals and objectives that the student works on during the school year and are only provided in those areas on the current IEP that the student has demonstrated A, a regression of skills during an extended school break, and B, limited ability to benefit from reteaching of skills after an extended school break. In addition to the two criteria above, case law includes emerging skills, or when a student is on the brink of learning a new skill, in the analysis of eligibility for ESY. If a student is in a critical stage of learning a skill that could lead to a greater level of independence, and interruption of instruction would cause loss of the current level of skill development, ESY should be considered by the IEP team. ESY and summer school are often confused, but there are key differences and important distinctions between the two. Summer school is a function of general education programming. As a result, participation in summer school is not determined by a special education student's IEP. ESY is a special education and related service that is considered when offering an individual with exceptional needs an offer of a free and appropriate public education, or FAPE. Keeping in mind that ESY is not traditional summer school, but rather an IEP-driven program, ESY is also not designed for credit recovery, another gen ed-driven program. Also consider that it is not designed to address compensatory education or learning loss recovery, which are two separate considerations in special education. Let's talk about how ESY is determined. IEP conversations take place as part of a student's IEP meeting. Players include the student, parents, general education teachers, specialists, administrators, and perhaps related service providers. When making determinations surrounding ESY services, IEP teams will want to focus on the following considerations: the nature and severity of a student's disability, regression and recoupment, the degree of progress toward IEP goals and objectives, emerging skills or breakthrough opportunities, interfering behavior, and any special circumstances that interfere with a student's ability to benefit from special education. Let's examine each a bit more closely. The nature and severity of a student's disability is a primary consideration in determining ESY eligibility because, according to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, eligibility must be based on individual need rather than a uniform basis. The nature and severity of each student's disability is highly individual and must be taken into consideration when determining need. Another common consideration is looking at regression and recoupment. Most frequently, teams do conduct a regression and recoupment analysis, which may include, but is not limited to, looking at the degree of regression suffered in the past, looking at whether the student's disability will continue indefinitely or for a prolonged time, looking at the degree, whether it's minimal or serious, of actual or likely regression following a school break, looking at the impact of the student's behavioral and social emotional needs, as well as the amount of time spent reteaching the student's skills which had been previously taught and mastered. Another consideration is the degree of progress towards IEP goals and objectives. For example, are there any goals and objectives on the IEP that require ongoing support in order to maintain the learned skills? IEP teams should consider the degree of progress and whether that student is at a crucial point in attaining new skills, and that teams may ask if an extended school break would have detrimental effects on progress toward IEP goals and objectives. Similarly, IEP teams may focus on emerging skills and breakthrough opportunities. Is the student at a crucial point of skill acquisition or readiness where their ability to acquire the skills will be lost or greatly reduced as a result of an interruption in services? Teams may also focus on interfering behavior. As mentioned earlier, when discussing regression and recoupment, it is critical for IEP teams to consider if there is an impact on students' ability to make educational progress due to interfering behaviors and/or social emotional needs. As a result, when determining if a student is eligible to receive extended school year services, IEP teams should consider, are there behavioral or physical factors that negatively impact the student's ability to maintain learned skills? Have there been extended absences that impact the student's ability to maintain learned skills? Have there been major life events that impact the student's ability to maintain learned skills? Or have there been any significant behavioral challenges that interfere with that maintenance of learned skills? Lastly, teams should always consider if there are special circumstances that interfere with a student's ability to benefit from special education. For instance, are there any other issues concerning the student's physical, social, emotional, and/or behavioral well-being? Has the student recently been diagnosed with a medical condition, or does the family and/or IEP team have mental health concerns? Have all academic and/or vocational issues been considered, including the student's ability to be with their typically developing peers? In summary, has the team considered all areas which may be adversely impacted if the student does not receive extended school year services? Let's take a look at a few additional IEP team considerations. Here are some examples of guided questions IEP teams may ask. Does the student display a loss of previously taught skills and an inability to regain those skills following interruptions in instruction? Is the current student at a crucial stage in learning a skill or skills such that an interruption in school program might cause a loss of that skill? Does the student require ESY to continue to achieve at the level of independence that is expected in view of the student's disabling condition? Or would this student benefit from extended school year services over an extended break, for example, winter recess? When considering ESY services, it's important for the IEP team to base decisions on utilizing data. Teams may consider pre-break and post-break data, looking at whether the student demonstrates a past pattern of regression in skills as evidenced by breaks in a school year, or maybe what is the estimated amount of time it takes or may take the student to regain the prior level of knowledge, skills, benefits, or functioning following a school break? Or is the student at a critical point of skill acquisition? Teams may also look at data with progress on goals. Does the student show a pattern of inability to reach annual goals due to breaks in school? There are a variety of data points teams may consider when determining need for ESY services. Examples of individualized student data may include, but are not limited to, work samples, formative or summative assessments, medical reports, educationally related assessment reports, progress on goals and objectives, parent and student reporting, and participation in transition or career readiness activities. When utilizing data, It's recommended to take data on an IEP skill within the last 1 to 2 weeks of the school year, and then again after the first 6 to 8 weeks in the fall to gauge recoupment and regression. If pre and post data from a summer break is not available, you may consider utilizing a break of 5 or more days to measure data. You may take data after an interval equal to the length of the break. So for example, you may take data 14 to 16 days after a return from a 2-week break. Or you may evaluate data from the prior school year to the current results. Let's take a look at data sets representing regression and recoupment patterns. In the first example, we see that the data before and after the 2-week break demonstrates very little change. The student's performance has not lowered from pre-break levels, therefore there is no regression of that skill. In the second example, we see that the data demonstrates a dip after the break, but then returns to pre-break levels after a period of instruction equal to the length of the break. This demonstrates a pattern of regression with recoupment. In the last example, we see that the data dips and never returns to pre-break levels, even after a period of instruction equal to the break. This demonstrates regression without recoupment. Data such as this can help IEP teams determine regression and recoupment patterns and support ESY decision-making. Next, let's take a look at appropriately documenting ESY services in the IEP. The information just reviewed is extensive, and you may be wondering what is the best way to document the IEP team's considerations and determinations in the student's IEP document. The SELPA recommends utilizing the ESY eligibility worksheets 1 and 2 in the student's future IEP forms. These forms will provide guidance for the team through guided questions and requests for information and data to showcase the team's decision. The worksheets also provide a place for the team to record additional information and explanation for their determination. Specific ESY services are documented on the Offer of Fate page of the IEP. The team will provide a rationale for their decision, which should be based upon the previously discussed worksheets. Then, each ESY service will be listed separately in much the same way as services from the typical school year are listed and described. Let's take a moment to think about who provides ESY services. Once extended school year services have been identified, who may provide those services? Extended school year services shall be provided by an appropriately credentialed professional identified by the California Teaching Credentialing Commission. If you have questions regarding the necessary credentials for a service provider, the SELPA recommends visiting the California Teaching Credentialing website for additional information. Also, it's important to highlight that state law identifies extended school year as part of a local education agency's full continuum of special education related services. As a result, each local education agency must ensure that ESY services are available to those who qualify. If a local education agency does not have an extended school year program available through their site, they must contract with another school or non-public agency in order to provide the extended school year services and a free, appropriate public education. ESY program offerings outside of the local education agency may include, but are not limited to, contracting with another local education agency which does have an ESY program. The LEA may also offer to provide services at a mutually agreed upon location, such as a local library. Please note, if LEA staff are not available over the summer to provide services, the school shall contact for service providers to be available during ESY. How are ESY programs implemented? When considering extended school year program implementation, it is important to note that California state law requires that ESY be provided for a minimum of 20 instructional days, including holidays. In addition, in order to be eligible for ADA, or average daily attendance reimbursement, extended school year programs shall be the same length of time as the school day for pupils of the same age level attending summer school in the local education agency where extended school year is provided. Related services offered during extended school year shall also be comparable in standards, scope, and quality to the regular academic school year. A final key point about extended school year programming is a local education agency's responsibility to provide extended school year services in the student's least restrictive environment when the local education agency concurrently operates a summer school program. In 2014, the Second United States Circuit Court of Appeals held that the least restrictive environment requirement applies to extended school year programs in the same manner it applies to school year placements. However, in California, the law relieves local education agencies of any obligation to create a general education summer program just to satisfy the least restrictive environment requirement. In other words, if during the regular academic year, the student's IEP specifies integration in the regular classroom, a local education agency is not required to meet that component of the IEP if it offers no regular summer school programs. Keep in mind that the obligation to offer ESY services applies across all education programs and includes independent study programs, year-round schools, and homeschool programs, as well as more traditional seat-based programs. If your LEA does not offer a site-based ESY program, there are options for alternate service delivery. Keep in mind that ESY services must be tailored to individual needs and cannot be based on availability of LEA services alone. LEAs may consider opening an ESY on-site or provide services at a mutually agreeable site, such as a public library. An LEA may also consider contracting with a local school district, a charter school, or a non-public school or non-public agency with available programs or staff during ESY. Also, always remember that even in these more creative scenarios, ESY services must always be provided by appropriately credentialed staff. Thank you for your time and attention in listening to our SELPA's presentation surrounding ESY.